Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Dreams of Nibiru Cataclysm. What's up, anons? I had an apocalypse dream recently, and it resurfaced a lot of memories from other similar dreams I've had in the past. Now, I'm not going to claim that these were precognitive dreams, but they definitely had a foreboding atmosphere about them. Something a little bit more than just a vivid imagination mixed with conspiracy-induced paranoia. They were typically more symbolic than anything, like how shamans would have dreams or visions with specific themes and imagery regarding future circumstances. Around the time I started high school, I developed an interest in conspiracies. My dad was a conspiracy nut, and so it bled into me. Ones I particularly fixated on were about Nibiru, or Planet X, Hercolobus, whatever the hell you want to call it. That one really stood out among the rest. A good chunk of the Nibiru stuff I was looking into had an ominously tangible presence about it that I felt personally. I can't really describe it better than that, like some kind of primordial fear. Nibiru hasn't just appeared in apocalypse dreams either. Over the past 9 or so years, I've seen it under a variety of different circumstances. It isn't always the center of focus. I could be having a normal run-of-the-mill dream, then I'd glance up and notice a second moon in the sky, or something akin to that. I'll give an example in the next post below. I've also ham-fisted some images together to try and portray what I've seen in these dreams. I'll go ahead and start with a Greentext about one of the first and more subtle appearances of Nibiru in my dreams. Be me, sophomore in high school, about 3 months into researching shit like sacred geometry and Nibiru on and off. Have kind of put aside the conspiracies because girls and weed are a higher priority at this moment in time. Go to bed one night, find myself dreaming about being at some house party. One of those dreams where you feel like you're in a movie, is incredibly immersive, even despite weird dream shit like opening a random closet door and seeing a childhood toy sitting on the shelf, or similar happenings of the like. After a while, go to the top floor and step out on a balcony. As soon as I walk out the sliding glass door, everything goes quiet. It's like I'm in an entirely different dream. I just kind of look around the skyline, weirded out but nonchalant. Look at the moon. See pic related. What the hell.jpg? Image is burned into my mind. Go back inside and dissolve back into a regular dream like nothing happened for an indiscernible amount of dream time. Eventually, I woke up from the dream with pic related still fresh in my mind. Feel a strange foreboding presence that keeps me awake until sunrise. I would see things like pic related in my dreams for a few more months afterwards. Not with as strong of a nightmarish sense as the story above, but it would still pop up every so often. And like I said anons, the images I made that I'm including are pretty far from being the most accurate, but they get the job done. The presence of Nibiru became progressively more alarming in my dreams as they happened, although they weren't really noteworthy until I had the one I'm about to tell you. I'm just going to jump right into the Greentext. There is a bit of a build-up, so stay with me. Be around 2016. Life drones on with typical nonsense. Still interested in Nibiru mythos, but haven't been paying too much attention to them at this point. Go to bed. Snore mimimimi.wav. Eventually, I found myself in a dream, going on a road trip with a group of friends, 5 or 6 of us. Dream rolls along typically as per usual. Traveling the country, the destination is apparently some grandiose cabin in the wilderness. Arrive at the cabin, typical dream shenanigans continue to take place. Eventually, all my friends and I are standing in the living room, trying to get the TV to work. Feel a foreboding presence creep in as I stare out the large glass sliding door of the cabin. Oh, here we go. .jpg. Out of nowhere, a violent earthquake begins. Shits last for what feels like forever. Shit falling off of shelves and windows shattering, it's so bad. Suddenly stops. The silence is deafening. One friend turns on whatever news channel. Nothing but frantic nonsense for a while. After some rambling from the news anchors, the feed cuts to a very disheveled Asian man, pale as a ghost. You can see the fear in his eyes as he collects his breath. I still feel slight tremors in the ground as my friends and I anxiously watch the flat screen. The microphone trembles in his hands. He finally attempts to speak. It has been reported that, More off-screen murmuring from the news team. The screen starts to flicker with static. He continues. We have received reports that something has suddenly appeared at the edge of our solar system. It looks like the head of Medusa. It's absolutely massive and seems to be staring directly at Antarctica. Image like pic-related flickers onto screen. Everyone in the room collectively flips their shit. Broadcast finally succumbs to static as another earthquake sets in. Violent shaking. Wake up in another cold sweat. Pants fully shat. JPEG. The dream said it looked like the head of Medusa, but to me it looked more like one of those creepy metal sun decorations you find at Home Depot. Also, around this time, the end is near. People were screeching about how Planet X was going to crash into Earth soon. Every week there was a new arrival date. I thought they were idiots, but this dream made me start second-guessing. Time to get into the real nitty-gritty. B 2017. There is a celestial alignment on the 23rd of September. Very eerily aligns with Revelation 12. Pic-related. Be me really leaning back into the Nibiru conspiracies. Anons theorizing the dragon of Revelation 12 is Nibiru. Nibiru has been getting closer in every dream I've had about it for the past year. My face when the harbinger of death is knocking on the door. Stressing like I'm meeting a girl's judgmental parents for the first time, and I just flooded their toilet. The time comes and I use a chintzy star tracking app to watch the alignment happen. The sun was still out, so I really couldn't see shit. Could pop a tire with how clenched my ass is. Alignment comes and goes. Big Red is nowhere to be found. Kick myself for being dumb and autistic. But wait, there's more. Been a few days and weeks since the alignment. Nerves have been chilling steadily since we didn't get gravitationally sideswiped by Super Jupiter. Be sleeping. Find myself dreaming again. I'm sitting peacefully in my living room when suddenly the power goes out. Guess who's here? Foreboding feeling. You gotta be shitting me. JPEG. Dream turns into a time-lapse of 7 days. Day 1, power does not come back on and people are getting antsy. Day 2, the public gets more restless and supplies start flying off the shelves. Streets cluttered with traffic, people shouting at each other, tensions rising. Day 3, civil unrest leads to a massive increase in the presence of law enforcement. Day 4, planes start crashing into mountains and slamming into the ground. Smoke clutters the air as fires run rampant from cities burning. Day 5, the skies go dark and the stars disappear. Everything begins to flood. Water rises steadily. I can hear the suffering screams of people all around me. I stay hidden in my house the best I can. Day 6, the earth is engulfed in a thick red mist. It rolls in like a sandstorm. The cloud is massive. Shortly after the screams stop. Day 7, I can no longer stay in the house due to flooding. I don't remember much from this part, mainly just a struggle to see and get away from the water. Last thing I see is myself walking into the mist, can barely even see in front of me. A handful of bright red stars can be seen in the sky through the mist. I woke up after that. All the events happened in rapid succession, but it also felt like an eternity. My eyes were puffy and my voice was hoarse like I had been crying in my sleep. Most of these events were seen from the perspective of my front window. It's like I didn't even move, I just sat and watched as the world turned to shit. I wasn't okay for a while after that one. I'm not sure about the date of this next one specifically. I just know it happened after a while. I can't remember if it happened closer to the last one or if there's some time between them. Either way, here we go. Be me, stressed and trying to sleep. Dreamweaver.mp4. I'm in my living room again. It's dark outside. I can tell it's daytime, but everything is in deep sepia tones. Wander cautiously to the front door and open it to go outside. It's misty and everything looks borderline derelict. Look up at the mountain across the street from my neighborhood. I see the moon. It's very large, as if it's gotten closer to the earth. I look above it. Shit pants. Nibiru is there in all its glory. It's absolutely massive, and I can see a few of its moons as well. I'm locked in place. I can only stare with morbid fascination at it. I can see mountains on it as well as storms. It looked like a much larger version of Mars covered in hurricanes. Something catches my attention suddenly. A strange white light is starting to emit from the top of our moon. It increases gradually and the light's color starts to turn into a lavenderish. A volley of lasers shoot up off of the moon. They're aimed up at Nibiru and are moving in all sorts of directions. I glance up to the red menace. The moon is projecting a volley of what looks like complex sacred geometry onto Nibiru's surface in very rapid succession. PIC-related. I cannot tell if it's a weapon, but it's certainly doing something to the surface. The light gets more intense and the earth begins to shake. Book it back inside. As soon as the door slams, I wake up. This one wasn't as scary as the others. I don't know if it was just because I was used to the dreams by now, or if it was how perplexed I was by this one specifically. It was really strange and probably more lifelike than any I had before. I've got about 2 more and then I'll give my fingers a break. If you've stuck around this long, thanks for tuning in. Feels good to get these off my chest. This one's pretty short as I don't remember much details. It could very well just be an amalgamation of various images I've seen in these dreams over the years that I've just mistakenly cobbled together. Pass out after a long day. Sweet dreams are made of cheese.wav, walking around some neighborhood or something. I can't really tell, yet again everything looks sepia, and there's a thick fog everywhere. Brisk pace, but keeping my footsteps light as possible. I think it's nighttime. All I can really see is Nibiru in the far distance. Hear things scuttling around in the mist. I don't know if it's people, scavenging animals, or something else, but I don't want to be there. I remember thinking to myself that it, Nibiru, looks like it's finally leaving. It's pretty far from Earth. I feel much older in the dream than I was, and currently am at the time. Look to the left and see a large shadow in the distance. Can't tell what it is, but I'm not sticking around to fucking find out. Whip my head forward and slow run up the street. The memory gets kinda blurry after this, but I don't think there's anything of significance anyway. This last one is another short one. Not because itself is inherently short, it was just another series of events that happened in succession. It's also the one I had a few days ago, the one that inspired this post. Probably not even going to Greentext this one. I don't know what was happening, but it's like America lost all contact with its government. There was a silent terror and everyone was bugging out. And I mean bugging out as in trying to get the hell out of Dodge ASAP, whether it was simply a safe location or out of the country altogether. It happened over the course of a few days. I remember wandering around the state I'm currently in. I was trying to get somewhere as well as attempting to check on my friends and family. In my travels, I bumped into a lot of people. No matter who they were, no matter where they were going or what they were doing, they all had the same scared expression. Everyone was keeping their heads down and staying very quiet. No riots, no violence, nothing. Everyone was scurrying away like animals running from something loud in the woods. The dream was completely devoid of the normal sounds of bustling cities and a boisterous populace. Everyone was hushed up, running around in packs. There was a big atmosphere of don't look up and stay out of sight. It didn't feel like something was coming. It was like something was already here, and everyone had the mutual understanding to not screw with each other and just get away from whatever it was as fast as possible. I didn't see Nibiru. In fact, I didn't really see much of the sky at all. I eventually got to where I needed to be, and the last thing I remember was that me and the people I was with were stockpiling supplies in a small community. It did, however, have the same vibe to it as the Nibiru dreams did. And that's about it, Anons. Again, thanks for reading if you made it this long. I'll stick around for questions, but I have things to do so I might not be able to respond right away.
2 blue stars and 1 red star, realizing I had a dream about this shit too. In my dream, they were stars, not planetary bodies. The red ones swallowed the Earth. There was fire everywhere.
Nibiru supposedly orbits around a brown dwarf, could have been that.
I've had dreams with flooding and red mist too. I've had like 2 dreams with Nibiru, but it wasn't red, it was black. I just associated the red mist with red tide because the hotter the Earth gets, the more red algae will start to bloom. That's relative to my Nibiru dream, because the closer it got, the more the surroundings around me started to heat up.
It's said the system carries with it a large debris field riddled with iron oxide. Might be the red mist. I also want to say real quick, I never saw any aliens in these dreams. Minus the moon lasers, nothing potentially extraterrestrial seemed to happen.
In my red mist dream, there were prehistoric animals and things that resembled the tentacle mouth from the mist, but it was skinnier. But nothing intelligent, just prehistoric predators that we were hiding from while trying to avoid the toxic red mist.
Care to share the full dream if you have the time?
It's been like 2 years since I've had it, but yeah. The dream starts off with us in a house that's not ours, and I'm with several members of our family. Reflecting back on this dream, the house resembled my aunt's. I'm 25, by the way. There's red mist everywhere with pockets of clean air, and you can visibly see pterodactyls flying hunting for people. There's also flooding, but because of the red mist, the water and mud has become toxic. To navigate the yard easier, we have placed down wood. At this point in the dream, we have taken in a group of young people. One girl looks sick. I thought she had an overdose or something because they look like the type. Reading the iron oxide comment and Googling the symptoms of iron oxide poisoning, I think she had simply been contaminated. It was around this point I looked up and saw the enormous skinny walker, the tentacle-faced thingy from the mist. Warning, the dream ends on a sad note though. Eventually everyone just gets so exhausted of what's happening, and they all decide to just walk into the mist, and I'm left with no other option but to walk into the toxic mist as well. And as soon as I did, I woke up.
Space pterodactyls and giant tentacle monsters. I would very much rather the Earth get bodied by a rogue planet instead. The mist, happening on a global scale because of some hell planet passing by, is so bleak.
The thing is, I also believe in hollow Earth. More like ocean-sized caverns instead of being completely hollow. And was thinking that the earthquakes that Nibiru is going to cause us will create a sort of crack, letting out primordial prehistoric things from cavities in the earth. But then again, they could be space pterodactyls. I would like to tell my other 2 dreams. They happened earlier this year. Dream 1. One of those dreams where you start off waking up and getting out of bed. Go to the living room where several of my family members are. Everyone is scared and watching the news. The news reporter is speaking like a religious zealot. Our Lord Nibiru has arrived in the sky. The news shows a black planet. I actually woke up. Dream 2 happened weeks later. I'm standing in the middle of my street, staring up at the black planet Nibiru growing closer. Everything is getting hotter, literal steam coming off the ground. Smoke starts coming up off the ground, and I can hear coughing. I'm coughing too. A truck with no one in the driving seat is coming towards me. Smart fires start everywhere, and the truck pulls up in my driveway and catches on fire. Reflecting back on this truck reminds me of my brothers.
Interesting. Brown dwarf stars emit a lot of infrared heat. Maybe the gases interact with the Earth and start causing a lot of volcanic eruptions and the sort. Heat rises, all that swelling could open up these hollow Earth pockets you're talking about.
Anyone ever heard of Nibiru? Apparently there is a rumor that our solar system is a binary star system. 2 stars orbiting each other. And every 3,600-something years, the stars get really close to each other and make a fly, like how Halley's Comet passes Earth every 75 years. Nibiru is supposedly a brown dwarf star, not a full star, so it does not shine like a star. It is supposed to pass Earth this August, and the gravitational force will cause massive tidal waves and earthquakes and even disrupt our Earth's rotation. The brown dwarf star has a large cloud of iron oxide spiraling around it, and as it nears Earth, the cloud will cause the illusion of blood raining down onto the Earth. The planet is supposedly mentioned in many ancient civilizations, such as the Egyptians and Mayans, and the planet has been responsible for mass extinctions throughout history. Anyone else heard of Nibiru or Planet X? Right now, it is said to be beyond Pluto, but has been observed and is said to be approaching Earth fast to pass through our orbit. The government has supposedly known about it but suppressed it. 2012 was a warning to prep humanity for the idea of an event like this.
Astrophysicist here. Just because a brown dwarf doesn't shine, doesn't mean it doesn't emit other wavelengths of light. If Sol system had a brown dwarf companion, we'd know about it. It would also be closer to the parent.
Be me. Skull-crushing headache last night. Get my head down and fall asleep at 2 a.m. Lucid dreaming. It's night, and I'm in my garden. Look up and I see 2 moons. I know one of them is fake because I know the route the moon travels in relation to my garden. The fake one is getting bigger and bigger, starting to look less like a moon. It's a planet coming straight my way. Oh shit.jpg. A cold, empty feeling hits me. I can't believe it's ending like this fast, this sudden. I run inside to tell my family, shouting, but they can't hear me, literally roaring at them. I ran back out to see how close it was. We're so fucked. It stops getting closer and shrinks, moves back through space with great speed. Drop to my knees in relief, out of breath. Wake up. WTF happened, and why do I feel like this isn't a far-fetched play of how things will happen in the future?
Do you think about Nibiru a lot? I'd be more willing to acknowledge the significance of the dream if you don't already believe strongly in Nibiru, or were obsessed with the idea, you know.
No, actually, I don't. I've seen a few threads here in the past few weeks which might tie into it.
A variant of the Nibiru thing is that it doesn't actually interfere with planet Earth too bad, just enough to let us know it's near, but that it is full of some kind of others who change shifts every however many hundreds or thousands of years when it's in range, possibly taking humans with them. I've heard both willingly and not.
I don't understand, is Nibiru a planet or a spaceship? If it is a spaceship, then I haven't heard of that theory yet.
Nibiru is both. It's a hollow planet, very dense, with a high iron content. It is the home base of the Anunnaki. They have lost the ability to navigate the planet. One faction of the Anunnaki wants to destroy humanity in order to preserve themselves, while the other is resigned to their coming fate.
My wife never reads /x/stuff, although she enjoys sci-fi movies. But the dream she just had reminded me too closely about the stuff I've read here that it creeps me out. In the dream, we were together with the whole family somewhere outside, and we started to look up and noticed that the moon seemed bigger than normal. We kept looking at it, and it became bigger and bigger all the time, and then we realized it wasn't the moon, but another planet or something. It kept getting closer and closer, and then it shot out 3 fireballs or something like that, and when those landed, from those fire came out some beings looking almost like humans, but they had unnaturally long chins. Those beings started to kill people who were in horror. Suddenly, from that planet-huge sphere, shot out thousands or millions of similar fires, and realizing we were fucked, we tried to escape and get some supplies or something. Then we noticed that when those beings killed some human, they then changed to look like them. This whole dream, but especially this part, reminded me about the screen cap I've read of, described how some beings tried to get people out of their homes imitating their killed loved ones. My wife can't have read that from anywhere, and I don't recall this being any movie book plot. She have no idea what is Nibiru/Planet X also. Any idea about what those long-chinned beings could be. She rarely mentions her dreams, and this clearly was meaningful to her. She has some psychic powers and have history of seeing things beforehand, so this made me scared.
Any links mentioned will be below in a paste bin in the description. Gentlemen, it is my belief that we may be in the end of days, facing an apocalypse of biblical proportions brought on by a force that is mentioned but also misunderstood by many religious texts. It is my hope to convince you all of the potential reality of this threat so that we may convince other more qualified professionals to come forward and enlighten humanity. The threat we are facing is from another member of our solar system, a comet-like planet that periodically pelts the Earth with debris as it passes by. The official search for this object is called Planet 9, formerly Planet X. Some of you may be familiar with this planet, known to some as Nibiru by the late Zecharia Sitchin, who was the first to theorize about its existence. Sitchin's liberal translations of Sumerian lore aside, the cylinder seals he collected found throughout Mesopotamia are a key to unlocking Earth's mythology, true history, and future. These seals are usually crafted out of precious stones, engraved with a story, and then rolled onto wet clay. There have been thousands of seals found, but we are only interested in a few, the seals depicting the gods. Like Sitchin, I believe there is another race of humans in our solar system, originally from this planet, that once ventured to Earth and established a foothold. During the comet planet's periodic passes, they would jump off, their stature and technological advancement used to establish a dynasty. Their genetics are still with us. Known as gigantism, see videos below. Pay close attention to their facial features and the facial features depicted on these cylinder seals. I believe the significance of these cylinder seals is that some of them were crafted by the descendants of this race, encoding within them important knowledge about our solar system, for instance where they are from. The winged globe depicted in these cylinder seals has no official explanation. They are simply referred to as Nimbus. I believe what is depicted is the comet planet itself, the home of these giant hominoids. It is sometimes depicted simply as a cross, possibly the origin of the symbol, and its relation to the kingdom of heaven. Sitchin believed that as the planet began to approach the Earth, it would first appear as a red cross in the sky. In the relief he referenced in his lecture, you can see it must have approached from the direction of the sun, as men are plowing their fields, and this would have only been done during the day. The planet has been depicted all over the world in many different forms and mythologies, usually as a fierce winged creature that brings destruction and rebirth. Immanuel Velikovsky's Worlds in Collision postulated that around the 15th century BCE, a planet-sized comet, he theorized Venus, passed by the Earth. The resulting encounter caused earthquakes, climatic shifts, and firestorms from the petrochemicals in its tail. For those of you not familiar with Velikovsky's story, I recommend this documentary, see below. Velikovsky believed that Moses' exodus from Egypt coincided with this comet planet's passing, and the consensus at the time was that the exodus took place somewhere around the 15th century BCE, but I contest it may have occurred earlier. The oldest official reference to this comet, known as Typhon, is by Pliny the Elder, and a terrible one comet was experienced by the peoples of Ethiopia and Egypt, to which the king of its time gave his name Typhon, fiery in appearance and twisted in the way of a coil, also grim to the sight, not really a star so much as something like a fiery knot. This paper, reference below, gets into the complicated mess of translating ancient texts, specifically Velikovsky's sources regarding Typhon. It argues that Pliny's quote could be translated to, "And a terrible one comet was experienced by the peoples of Ethiopia and Egypt," to which the king of its time gave the name Typhon, fiery in appearance and twisted in the way of a coil, also grim to the sight, not really a star so much as something like a fiery knot. This is not semantics. It is important as there is no record of a king in Egypt or Ethiopia named Typhon. If he named the comet after himself, he should be found somewhere in the historical record. There was a period of time when record-keeping in Egypt was disrupted, though, during the supposed Hyksos invasion/occupation that occurred during the 17th century, 1640 to 1580 BCE. Why this happened is essentially guesswork, so let me propose another explanation. There was a massive eruption of the Thera volcano around 1600 BCE, with ice cores and tree rings, arguably the most reliable sources of dating, putting the event around 1642 BCE. I argue that the comet planet returned during this period. Its passing caused a cataclysm that disrupted Egypt, allowing for Moses' exodus and a subsequent invasion occupation by the Hyksos, which then disrupted record-keeping. Here is a quote from the King James translation of Exodus, "For the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians. And when he seeth the blood upon the lintel, and on the two side posts, the Lord will pass over the door, and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your houses to smite you." There is another more controversial text called the Kolbrin Bible that elaborates on this destroyer. It is worth a read. It is also worth mentioning Aristotle's Meteorology, where he states in chapter 6, "Some of the Italians called Pythagoreans say that the comet is one of the planets, but that it appears at great intervals of time and only rises a little above the horizon. Interesting that the Pythagoreans would think this, as their founder Pythagoras was rumored to have studied in Egypt, and it was in Egypt that Plato's ancestor Solon heard the myth of Atlantis. I wonder what knowledge was lost during the burning of the Library of Alexandria. Nevertheless, the cylinder seals survived as well as Sumerian lore, and from studying this lore, Sitchin believed that the orbit of Nibiru was 3,600 years due to cycles he found in Sumerian kings' lists. Before we write off Sitchin completely, let us remember the supervising astronomer of the U.S. Naval Observatory. Robert Harrington, original proponent of Planet X in the 1980s, took him seriously. What might Harrington have known that we do not? If we add 3,600 years onto the last time this planet supposedly interacted with the Earth, 1,600-ish BCE, we get the year 2000 CE. I will now begin to provide some evidence that the planet may have returned into the inner solar system. These are computer glitches that have been appearing on SOHO cameras since 2009. SOHO is a sun-facing satellite orbiting just outside of the Earth at something called the Lagrange 1 point. These glitches have been collected by a cult-like group of people who follow someone named Nancy Leader. In 1995, Nancy proclaimed that she was in telepathic communication with extraterrestrials from the Zeta Reticuli star system and founded the website ZetaTalk. Their message to her was that this comet planet was inbound and due to pass into the inner solar system in 2003, whereby it would fly past Earth and cause a cataclysm, sling around the sun, and then create another cataclysm at a later date. Obviously, a cataclysm did not occur in 2003, which calls into question the legitimacy of her claims. But we are left with these captures from SOHO nonetheless. I have been following this saga since 2010 and have found 2 captures of these glitches on NASA's website recently. To prove that these images have not been tampered with, see below. They continue to show up until this day. Some of the more prominent captures shown here are no longer available online, but this could be due to the data simply expiring. What are the chances that these computer glitches resemble that of the nimbus found on 4,500-year-old cylinder seals?
Reminds me of a dream I had. I was at a family gathering of some sort at my old house and we all felt the earth rumble. Not like an earthquake, but like an entire spaceship shaking or a boat on rocky water. We run outside and this giant thing, almost like a planet or comet with its own angelic atmosphere, rushed by our planet, slicing into our atmosphere as it sped by. The sky seemed to split open. Not exactly physically, but you could see atmospheric lensing and a giant fucking cloud of a very foreign alien green miasma flooding down in a strange pattern, like it wasn't used to the atmosphere. Everyone ran but me. It felt so nonsensical for them to run. Where were they running to? We are all in the same boat, but you can't abandon ship when there is no water to dive into. You know what I mean? I've only had a handful of these dreams in my life, and I had a dream of another celestial event 3 or 4 days ago.
I saw this thing in lucid dreams long ago before I ever saw the image. It's schizo and dumb, but makes for an interesting read. They're kind of like giant, moon-sized, space psychic organic being that exists in another dimension and can travel between their dimension and ours. This allows them to travel through space. They feed on living things and can completely drain a planet of life. I think they were the reason the observatory in Sunspot, New Mexico got shut down for 2 weeks in 2018. Conventional weapons won't hurt them. The only thing that can stop them are psychically evolved individuals that are incredibly powerful. They're similar to that old 90s X-Men episode when Professor X fought that green psychic alien thing.
All the X symbolism is hinting at Planet X. Think about it. Elon Musk, who's aspiring to be the first man on Mars, bought Twitter and changed it to X. His space company is called SpaceX. The solar eclipse is forming an X. And now the World Economic Forum SPERGs met at Davos to discuss Disease X. It's also worth mentioning that a lot of billionaires built bunkers. They wouldn't do it if they knew the world will remain the same 50 years from now. The arrival of Planet X, aka Nibiru, would wreak havoc on Earth. Floods, earthquakes, grid failure, etc. The Sumerians also prophesied that the Anunnaki, aka aliens, aka our makers, will return with it. I say it's going to happen in either 2027 or 2028. You heard it here first.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.